Hello, everyone. I hope you're doing well. Today I'm going to talk about anxiety. I'm going to start by talking about some of the triggers and just explaining what it is, and then I'm going to talk about some tips for, dealing with it. Um, I don't want to waste any time. This is a very big topic, and I probably could do multiple videos on it, so I'm going to try and just keep this focused so that it's not longer than it needs to be. If I do, and I probably will, if I do multiple videos on this and it becomes a multi-part series, I don't want to waste your time. So let's just get right into it. What is anxiety? Anxiety is, and by the way, let me actually clarify just before, so you know who I am. I like to do these videos based on my own experiences, based on my knowledge of psychology and spirituality, and I also just use basic logic, So if you don't understand what I'm saying, if it doesn't make sense to you, I didn't do my job. So you can always ask for clarification in the comments, but my goal is to just make it make sense so that you don't feel like you're just trusting and taking my word for it, but so that you can have the same level of understanding of it that I do. And it's not always going to end up that way because it is, hard to condense it in a shorter video, but I'm going to try my best. So just so you know where this information is coming from and that you can trust me, I only share things that I'm sure of, and if I'm not sure of it, I'm not going to even bother talking about it. So, what is anxiety? Um, Anxiety is basically just your body having an overwhelming, sort of an overwhelmed reaction. It's like a sensory overload, basically. And I think the main reason that this happens to us is because of the way that people are brought up in societies all over the world. There is this sense of detachment from security in a relationship. I don't think people realize how important it is to have a secure and stable connection to some type of parental figure in your life. You need to believe that there is unconditional love that you are deserving of and that you have access to. And if you at any point don't believe that, it is going to create a sense of abandonment and this panic is going to kick in. That's the anxieties. It's like a panic. It's a sensory overload. So you're not going to feel secure. And when you take that away, it causes all sorts of problems. Unfortunately, most people do not know how to establish this because they don't actually think that the relationship matters as much as it does. And what a good example of this is, I don't exactly remember um, where this was found, but I've heard that there was a study involving some animals where they did something where they offered the animal food, and on the animal had to choose. It might have been a monkey, where it was like on one hand it can choose to have food, which is a basic survival instinct, or it could have its mother over there, and it I guess always chose the mother. To me, this makes sense because even more basic of a survival instinct than wanting food is wanting to have a secure relationship with someone who could maybe regularly provide food, security, shelter. A mother or just a parental figure in general means so much more to us instinctively than a banana, for instance. We have to acknowledge this as parents, as kids who have relationships with parents, that these kinds of things cannot be overlooked. You need to have that sense of security in your life. And if your parent has failed to provide you with that, they made you feel like their love for you was conditional and like you had to do a certain set of things to earn it. If you feel like you have failed at doing those things, it is so much more than just, oh no, I failed at what I was trying to do. You almost feel like your whole um, life is at stake. Like it feels like the end of the world, and you may not be able to compute it logically because internally, it might feel internally like nothing really is wrong. Maybe it's just a simple mishap. Maybe it's a simple misunderstanding. And if you really think about it logically, there is no reason for you to be so anxious, so freaked out. But still, that feeling is there. Why might that be? It's because to you, it is much deeper than that. It's much bigger than that. And that's why you have to go in and find your triggers. Anxiety triggers are different for everyone. I can only talk about what is usually at the root of it for most people. And this is what I think it is. It's a lack of security in feeling like you're stable and deserving of unconditional love and that you have access to that love. And when that's not there, you're kind of like isolated all alone with no one to protect you, no one to save you. So you go into panic mode. That's when you get the sensory overload and you're like, I don't know where to go, I don't know what to do. And your body can react in all sorts of different ways. Make no mistake, your anxiety, your emotions, they absolutely have physical impacts on you and they can be measured. So this isn't something to take lightly. This isn't something to just say, oh, well, deal with your anxiety on your own. This is hugely important. Another way that I think people don't realize this is actually quite normal. A lot of kids have, anxiety attacks. We call them temper tantrums, we give them different names, but it's basically the same thing. It's just that this doesn't always carry over into adulthood for every child, but most children can experience this because they're still, in development and they're still learning how to um, sort of manage their emotions and the way that they feel about things. So let's say that you have a kid and they want dessert before dinner, but you are maintaining that they're not going to have dessert until they eat dinner. Now, they may have a temper tantrum. They may get upset. They may, depending on their age, they may cry and freak out and really, really want to have dessert first. And if you just cave and say, all right, you know what, you can have dessert first, that kid is not going to be better off. They are going to now feel like they have the power. And that is an overwhelming sense of responsibility for a kid. They shouldn't feel responsible, for making the decision of what they're going to eat first. They should be able to feel like they can relax and they can trust you to know what you're doing. And when you are so double minded that you don't even act like you know what you're doing, you just say, okay, I guess this will just be better. Let's maybe just have dessert first because I just want to stop my kid from crying. That is going to create that sense of helplessness that you don't want your kid to have. You don't want your kid to think you don't know what you're doing, that if they have a temper tantrum, all of a sudden you're going to change your mind. They'll get over it, If you maintain what you said and you stick to it, but of course, you still make sure that the kid knows that it's not personal, that you still love them, then they will know that you know what you're doing. They'll cry, they'll have their whatever they need to do and they'll get over it, and then they'll just eat their dinner and they'll have the dessert after and they'll be fine. If they want to hold a grudge and be angry, they'll let it go eventually, because in reality you didn't do anything wrong and it isn't that big of a deal. You just had your reasons for it and it made sense to you. Now, if your kid wants to have a logical discussion and argument with you, that's fine, but make sure that it is entirely based on logic. There is no element of, okay, I'll give up and let you have what you want. It needs to it needs to be about you two actually coming to an agreement. So don't get lost in, to the parents out there who are like, obsessed with being authority figures and never letting their kids have what they want. It is okay to let your kid win sometimes, but only if you actually agree with them, only if it's truly what you feel and not because you're giving up. There's a difference between giving in and letting someone have what they want and actually changing your mind because they've convinced you with logic. So I would think that that would be common sense, but it doesn't seem to be for most people for some reason, but I just wanted to put it out there. So this is really important in raising kids, that we don't just cave and do things like this, but most people don't know what they're doing. People, especially as parents, are very double-minded. They can't decide how they feel about something, what they really want, but the weird thing is that they still seem to maintain this authority as parents, which is inconsistent with their behavior, and this just leaves your kid even further confused. And then they start to see you as this kind of angry tyrant, someone who just doesn't abide by logic, or by caring, but who just kind of my way or the highway, and that is going to really damage your relationship with your kid. They're going to be doing stuff behind your back. They're going to be talking about you behind your back. This is not what you want. And most parents think that they have a great relationship with their kid. The reality is, if you actually heard the things that they were saying about you behind your back, you would be shocked. And this is true for most parents. I'll grant you not all of them, but unfortunately, most people do not know what they're doing. The misconception that parents have some kind of superior knowledge is ridiculous. Anybody can have kids. Parents are no different than anybody else. They're just a person who had a kid. And the difference, if anything, is that it does enact some of your, it does, your instincts kick in. Those basic instincts of wanting to make sure that your kid is cared for and that you're showing them unconditional love. But as a human being, you have the ability to choose if you want to indulge those instincts or if you want to fight them. People have been known to be stupid. I don't know what other word there is for it. Stupidity just basically means bad sense of judgment, bad decision making. And people, time and time again, have generally proven to be quite stupid. People don't know how to make good decisions. And I think we can all relate to seeing these types of people. I think even though nobody wants to be judged, we can all relate to judging one another, which is kind of funny. But I've even heard one of the most interesting interactions I overheard was a woman, when I was working in retail, commenting on the way that the woman behind her was parenting her kids. She said something like, "You're gonna go to jail if you steal that," and the lady was commenting to me, "Oh, I don't think you should say that about your kids." And all of a sudden, the woman behind chimed in, and she was, I don't remember what she said, but it was some like little remark about how you shouldn't, don't tell me how to parent my kids or something. And that is one of the, people get really offended and defensive if you try to tell them how to be a parent. That is one of the easiest triggers for someone, is to, don't tell me how to raise my kids. That really is like a line you don't cross. It's like talking about politics and religion. It's you just don't do it. It's an unwritten rule. And it was very interesting to see this little interaction play out. I didn't involve myself. I didn't say a word because I honestly didn't know enough to even have an opinion. I didn't even hear what the woman said. I wasn't paying attention. I was just trying to scan because the woman's items, she had like 400 items or something. It was like ridiculous. I was focused on something else. So I was not paying attention to the details at all. But normally I do have opinions on things like this because I think about everything all the time. I love psychology, developmental psychology, and philosophy and spirituality. All of this is fascinating to me. But unfortunately, I didn't really pay close enough attention to that situation to actually have an opinion. So, I don't know what I would have even said, but I know that it still is not productive to react that way, whether it's actual constructive criticism or just a judgment. You don't want to respond by getting defensive and yelling at someone for telling you how to parent your kids. I get where the instinct comes from, but it's not helpful. It doesn't make the situation better. And it really just feeds into that mentality that a lot of kids develop about their parents, which is sort of like, tyranny. And you don't want to feed that. So, I realized I've changed the topic to parenting, but I'm going to switch back to anxiety because these two things do go hand in hand. I will maintain that this is not unrelated. I just spent a little too much time on the parenting aspect of it, but with anxiety, to be fair, it's a huge aspect of it. I'll give you that. I mean, how could it be? This is foundational. Is like how we raise our kids, so it's very important. But this is also in schools. We have these systems, and not everywhere in the world. It works a little different everywhere, but there's generally some idea of, failure that is hammered into your head from the time you're a kid, that you have to get good grades, you have to do a good job, you have to succeed, because if you fail, it's the end of the world, you're going to be out on the streets, you're not going to be able to survive. It's terrifying, these ideas that are hammered into your head. Of course it's going to trigger anxiety. Where does anxiety really come from? It's a survival instinct. It's the feeling of, panic, like you're not going to be okay. And why would you feel like you're not going to be okay if you felt like you were totally safe and you could survive? I just watched a movie last night. It's a very good movie. I recommend it. It's called Defending Your Life. It's starring Meryl Streep and the guy who voiced Nemo's dad in Finding Nemo. I can't remember his name. Albert Brooks. Um, and he plays this guy who dies, and then he goes to this afterlife, and it's called Judgment City, and it's where they determine if you're going to go back to Earth and reincarnate and do more work to evolve, or if you're ready to move on to whatever's next and just keep going in kind of a continuous evolution. And the main thing that they're looking for when they're sort of reviewing his life, trying to determine if he's ready to move on or if he needs to go back, is they're trying to determine if he can overcome his fear. And they explained to him, this is so interesting because in the movie, they said very clearly, there is no hell. And yet I watched this man act as if he was afraid of being sent to hell throughout the rest of the movie. He kept making decisions based on this fear, and I couldn't figure out what he was even afraid of. It didn't make any logical sense. But it made sense when you think about it psychologically, when you think about the things that we're taught as we're growing up. It isn't logical at all. And even in this circumstance, it was made so clear to him that he didn't really have anything to be afraid of. The worst case scenario was that he was sent back to the life that he was already familiar with. Sure, he might have a different name and identity, but it wouldn't be that big of a deal. He was also told that if you really were, more evolved, that you were using more percentage of your brain in the logic of the movie, that you wouldn't want to be on Earth. But still, he just came from Earth, it's the devil he knows, it's familiar to him. Why would that be so scary? He acted as if losing this battle and being sent back to Earth was going to be the end of the world. And he acted so afraid the whole time, and I just found myself wondering, what is he so afraid of? He was also very concerned with being normal. He asked if everyone has to come back as many times as he did, or if everyone has to review that many days of their life. He was very concerned with being normal and all of these things that are very relatable. I think a lot of people have these concerns in their head, but in this context, in this afterlife where he's being told exactly what he needs to worry about, which the only thing they were very clear, the only thing they were checking for is fear. So you would think that he would just let go of all of his fear and just relax and just be okay with whatever happens. But he still maintained a sense of fear, trying to control the outcome of the situation. And I think that the only reason for that is because of anxiety, which is kind of inherently illogical. It's just a fear. Usually your emotions have nothing to do with logic. And that's why I was trying to be kind of analytical as I was watching the movie and trying to make sense of it. I think the best way to word it would have been to just say, you know what, I don't care if I get sent back to Earth, because if I really am not ready for whatever's next, I wouldn't want to be a burden to the system. I wouldn't want to slow anything down. I will do the work and I'll only go through when I'm ready. So if you guys don't think I'm ready, then that's fine, and it is what it is. I want to be of service. I want to help out. I know I'm part of the universe. I'm part of existence, and it seems counterintuitive to think that the universe would want to hurt itself, and by hurting me, it would be hurting itself because I'm part of the universe. It's all the same thing. So, really, if the universe wouldn't hurt itself, then I have nothing to be afraid of. I just have to be willing to work with it and be part of it. And try to take care of it and take care of myself, take care of everyone else, and just, be of service. And I would just say that and let it play out however it played out. And I think that that would be a sign that I wasn't operating from a place of fear, that I was actually being very logical, and that I showed that I actually cared about taking care of other people, that I wasn't just, selfish, but that I knew that, even if it meant risking my own well being sometimes, it is important to help other people. I think what we do is we sort of like comparing it to school. You go to school, you're in kindergarten, and you maybe you get held back a little bit, maybe you don't. Maybe you continue to graduate and eventually you're in 12th grade and eventually you go to college and then you decide how you're going to help out the world. Maybe you're going to, I don't know, be a mechanic and help people, fixing their mode of transportation from one place to another. Maybe you're going to be, I don't know, a therapist or a hairdresser who kind of also acts like a therapist. Maybe you're going to be a teacher, and you're going to teach people all the things that you were taught when you were growing up, and maybe you'll try to do a better job of it or something. You'll find some way to contribute something to the world. Um, and, if you really continue to prove that you're not ready for that, if you continue to prove that you are going to make decisions that are irrational, stupid, based, on fear, based on just, trying to control without really thinking. I think fear-based decisions and stupid decisions are kind of one and the same, which they touched on a little bit in the movie, interestingly enough, although they didn't directly state that. But I think that there's a connection, because when you're making decisions based on fear, you're not really thinking logically at all. So to me, fear is all about control. It's about trying to manipulate circumstances And that is why the child crying over not getting dessert first would be having a temper tantrum. The goal of the temper tantrum is to manipulate the situation, to change it, because you wish that it was a different way. And who cares why you wish it was that way? There could be a million reasons. Maybe you feel um, like it's going to be the end of the world. Maybe it is coming from a deeper place of anxiety. Maybe it's just a simple basic instinct of, not getting what you want and having to learn to be told no sometimes. Could be a million different things. It's beside the point. The point is that the goal of having a temper tantrum is to try to change the situation. It is almost like a signal. You're signaling out saying, please help me. I'm desperate. I'll do anything. I've reached a point of complete helplessness. I'm a victim. I don't know what to do. I just want the goddamn dessert. Please help me. It's this desperate signal. And you're hoping, desperately praying that people will hear that signal and come over and try to comfort you and put a band-aid on and give you that dessert to make you feel better. But when no one does that, what do? You realize that you're okay, you pick yourself up, you stand up, and you say, you know what, that was really embarrassing. And then you eat your dinner first and then you have the dessert. And everything is fine and everyone is fine. And you didn't need to be the center of attention because it wasn't really the end of the world. I think the only reason that someone would want to be the center of attention is if they actually feel an inflated sense of responsibility. They feel responsible for more than they actually are. They feel like they have to take care of everyone and everything, or whatever it is. It's inflated and it's unrealistic, and it creates a sense of feeling like you are the center of the universe because without you everything would fall apart. And that's why that's a problem, because it's not true. Things go on without you. If you died, the world would still be fine. And I know that's hard to hear, but it's true. So I think one of the biggest tips that I could give you for dealing with anxiety is to just relax and trust that everything is not going to fall apart without you. You're going to be okay. Everything is going to be okay. And it is better to just let things play out how they're meant to. You have to learn what you actually are and are not responsible for. And I think I talked about this in an earlier video on this channel. I'm sure responsibility is in the title somewhere, probably. But this is extremely important. I think an inflated sense of responsibility is one of the biggest issues that we have as a society in almost every culture, because most of the issues that we ever even have as a species come from this. And this does relate to anxiety because it sort of causes anxiety, when you feel like you're failing at your duty at taking care of everything. But the problem with this is that no one wants to be around someone having a temper tantrum. No one wants to be around someone who's sending out that desperate signal of, like, please save me. I can't, it's so helpless. And, some people have that nurturing instinct. They want to take care of you. They want to go over and they want to make you feel better. But that's not really going to help you because, like what I said earlier with the, giving the kid the dessert first, that just makes the kid feel even more confused because now they are in charge. And that increases the sense of responsibility that they shouldn't have to feel. People are just not good at managing these things. And it's largely because of the way that things are set up in society, the way that we're sort of raised, the way that we raise other people, just what's in the schools, which could relate to political stuff. I don't want to get into all of the politics, but I think that I'll just put it like this. There are some people who benefit from people thinking and functioning this way. It's good for them to have people who are sort of thought of as just, workers, that, this work mentality of I gotta go to work, I gotta make money, and to not question things. I'll let you do the math there, but it's a problem, and it's not good. It's not healthy. We all have a role in the world, okay? We all do. There's no such thing as someone who just is here just to take up space and food and oxygen. We all have something that we can offer, something that we can give, but we have to know that you can't pour from an empty cup. You have to take care of yourself. If you expect to be useful to anyone, you have to actually, if you want to be a teacher, you have to first go through the 12 grades and graduate. You know what I mean? You can't just be a kindergartner and then go be the teacher at the same time. Even if you want to, even if you've decided that it's good to do that, you still have to know what you're doing. So just don't freak out. Manage, trust divine timing, take care of yourself. And if you start to have an anxiety attack, just step back and ask yourself, what can I actually logically do? It's good, I think, to focus on what you can do, what your next course of action should be, so that you don't just go into the panic mode and start, kind of flailing around like a drowning swimmer, that you're actually deciding what your next move is going to be. So analyze the situation. Just step back from before you have a reaction and analyze it and say, what can I actually do here? And try to be, it helps too to be considerate of other people. How would I feel if someone reacted this way? Before you, choose a reaction or an action, ask yourself how you would feel if you saw someone else acting in the way that you're thinking about acting. And say, okay, you know what? I would actually prefer if someone acted that way, so I'm going to do this. Just it helps in general to be considerate of how other people are going to feel. Whenever you're not sure how to take care of yourself, it helps to take care of other people. Not only is it kind of distracting you from all the, the spiraling that you might have been about to do, but you're giving something to someone else. You're making someone else's life better. And as you're doing that, you may actually learn how you might want to be treated and, how you might want to treat yourself. As you're taking care of someone else and giving them advice, you may be listening to your own advice and realizing that you knew what you wanted all along. I think we have access to the information we need. I think it's in our higher mind. I think that if we tap into it, it's there. I certainly have learned from my own advice. Once I step out of my own way and I stop spiraling and freaking out and I give someone advice, I almost realize that I could be giving this advice to myself, that I'm okay. I'll give you one last example before I end the video. I was having a meltdown because of an argument that I had with a friend, and it looked like the friendship was going to end, but it was giving me anxiety because I didn't know what was going to happen. It just felt very uncertain, which of course stems back to the, how a relationship matters and how we have to acknowledge whether it's a friendship or a parent or whatever it is. Your relationships matter. Any relationship you have with another human being is important to you. And if you're pretending that it isn't, you're just lying to yourself. And, I know that there's asexual and aromantic people. I know there's some people who are generally, they just prefer to be alone. That's okay. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't have relationships with other human beings. You have to, at some point, interact with other humans in order to function in the world. You might as well not even exist if you aren't interacting with anybody ever. It's just not possible. So, for those of you who that applies to, just know that this still does apply to you. And, you might want to just ask yourself how it applies to you. Don't just assume that this is for someone else. We all deal with anxiety and social anxiety and all sorts of things. Even extroverts, I think, have social anxiety to some degree. But that's just my own theory. I haven't really proven that, just to be clear. With my advice, though, I would say that what I did in this case with the friend, I was being very stubborn. I was sitting there. I was like, no, I feel awful. I don't know what to do. I don't know. Nothing's gonna make me happy. My mom was trying to help me, and she was like coming up with, I don't know. She said had some exercise. She was like, get on the floor and get in this position. And I was sitting there like, I don't want to do that. I don't think it's gonna work. But I just sucked it up and did it. I said, you know what? I might as well just try it. And without even doing it, just the simple act of making the decision to try was enough. And I almost felt like I was taking back control of how I felt and my situation. I wasn't trying to control the circumstances. I wasn't trying to change the situation between me and my friend. I wasn't trying to change what my mom was trying to do. I just said, I'm going to control how I feel. If I had control of it, I would want the other people around me to feel comfortable around me. I would want them to see me happy and in a good mood, and I would want to be in a good mood for my own self. So I got in the shower and I was singing and I was having a good time, and nothing circumstantially changed, but I changed the way that I felt about it. And I believe that we all have that power. It isn't going to apply the same way in every situation, but know that you have more power than you give yourself credit for, and that you can always take the time to step back and think about your actions before you act. So that can help with anxiety. You just have to be willing to trust. This is the key thing. You're safe. You're part of the universe. The universe would not hurt itself. I really mean this. It just doesn't make any sense. So no matter what you believe, I don't care if it's heaven and hell, I don't care if there have been, ideas pumped into your head since you were a kid about, being a good person or a bad person or doing the right thing or the wrong thing. You're okay. You're a human being. We all mess up, and we're all in a process of evolution. It's okay to mess up. It's encouraged. That's how you learn from your mistakes. Don't have such high expectations for yourself. In my own spiritual beliefs, as spiritual beings having a human experience, I think the human experience is like kindergarten or maybe even preschool level learning. I think that we continue to evolve as spiritual beings in the universe, but the human experience is a very, very basic level of evolution. Learning to choose between love and fear is basically what we're here for, and that is a very basic choice. I think it's, if you really think about it, it's pretty much just um, a foundational part of existence is choosing to believe that you have a right to exist, that it's okay to share love among all things that exist, and that it's all kind of the same thing. This to me is just common sense. But for most people, it's not. There are people who believe that you can exist wrong and that by existing wrong you deserve eternal torment. This is nonsense. And I can't imagine thinking that. And yet I did think that at one point. And there are plenty of people who still think that. And it is that thought process that is holding us back as a species. So just think about it logically. Don't let what you've been told get in your head. Know that the people who are trying to tell you what to think and what to believe, when they got here, they were babies too. They didn't know anything, and you know who they learned from? Other people who also used to be babies. We've all just been learning from each other, and nobody knows anything. So you have to know that even though nobody really knows anything, we still have access to truth, access to just higher knowledge. And that's what I was talking about, like in a higher mind. It's like, um, it's just there. The truth is just there. And that's why some people do seem to know what they're talking about, because they're not just coming from a place of ego. They're not just coming, from their own self and their own theories and ideas. They're actually following a logical pattern of thought, or they're following their intuition, which is even more trustworthy. I believe that sometimes logic can lead you wrong, sometimes emotions, usually emotions, will lead you wrong, but energy never lies. Excuse me for burping. So yeah, in conclusion, trust that everything is going to be okay and that it's okay to take care of yourself. And if you notice yourself having anxiety, just keep thinking about how there's there's nothing wrong. It's okay. Really. It's that simple. Um, if you have any questions, or if you've tried one of my suggestions and it hasn't worked for you, let me know in the comments. Because my goal is to help. So, whatever I can do to give better advice in the future. Like I said, this is a very big topic, and this was a little longer than I wanted it to be already, but as long as I can continue to make videos on this and it's better each time, you know, that's good. But I need feedback, so let me know. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day or night. I post videos on this channel. As of right now, my schedule might change, but as of right now, I'm posting videos on Fridays at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, every other Friday. And on the off Fridays, I'm posting on my other channel at the same time. And my other channel is, I'll put a link in the description. So just check out the description for my other channel. On that channel, I also do live streams at 8 p.m. Eastern Time offering free psychic readings. And I plan to do those on, I don't know if I said, Sundays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. I don't know if I said the day. And it's every Sunday on that channel. But I plan to do it on this channel once it allows me to do live streams, but I think I need 50 subscribers, so I'm not there yet. Just so you know. And if you want to book a private psychic reading with me, I also offer that. I'll put a link in the description for that. Okay, I think I've said everything I needed to say. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day or night.